get started with this month's Business and Leaders Luncheon. We've got a lot of information that we're going to share with you today. Actually, I'm not going to, our guests are, and it's wonderful and important information. I'm Lynn Snodgrass. I'm the CEO of the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce. I love my job, and I love my job because not just because of all the members that are involved, but because of all the information I'm in a position to filter through and learn from. I want to thank our sponsors of this program. Our presenting sponsors are Columbia Bank. Thank you very much, Columbia Bank. They are a continuing sponsor. The Boeing Company is a presenting sponsor as well. And Portland General Electric. They are the newest sponsor that we have to our Business and Leaders series. I also want to thank our stakeholder sponsors, Gresham Barlow School District. They have a vested interest in what happens in all business entities. And of course, MetroEast Community Media is our media sponsor. And by the way, they are recording the webinar today, and it'll be available through the cable channels through MetroEast Community Media, as well as it'll be on our chamber website at a later date. So I have natural gas at my house. Do you? Natural gas conversations are abundant in Salem this year. What's clean? What's a fossil? What does replacing it look like? They are not questions that Drake and I have at the dinner table every night, but the answers definitely will impact our company and our home finances. So we, my husband and I, but also we in general, need to understand why those conversations are so abundant in Salem. Why now? What's going on? And we need to start with facts about an industry that, quite honestly, we take for granted. I turn it on and it comes on. It heats the house. I turn it off and it's gone. The water is hot, et cetera, et cetera. So the topic today is the future or not of natural gas in Oregon. Our presenters today are our board member, Nina Carlson, who's with Government Affairs and Economic Development with Northwest Natural Gas, and Kevin Duel. He's a sales engineer with Northwest Natural Gas. So I want to welcome Kevin and Nina to our conversation today. So welcome, and the table is yours.
Well, hi all. Thank you for having Kevin and I today. We really appreciate you chiming in to learn about this topic. And the way I kind of wanted to start this off today is to lay out kind of where Northwest Natural is in the climate sphere and in these discussions, and then kind of talk about, despite the work that we are doing, some of the challenges that we're seeing both state and nationally, and even more importantly to Gresham is hyper-locally. So to kind of get started, I'd have Asha pull up the PowerPoint that we put together. This basically is going to, about 5 or 6 years ago, our company did some assessment, and we realized that climate change is going to be an issue that we need to address because we're an energy provider and our product does contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. And we knew that going forward that was going to be more and more of a concern, and we needed to address it despite any legislation. So Asha, if you could go to the first slide, please. I'm going to run through this really quick because I think the questions and the discussion behind this situation is more important. But in our strategic planning, we basically realized that we needed to address our product. We weren't going to argue about climate change. There is a climate imperative. Our product can be a solution to help innovate, evolve, continue bringing people the energy they've come to depend upon, but doing it in a cleaner, greener, more environmentally friendly way, but more importantly, in a way that really leverages the system that our customers have paid for and makes it so that people can continue to have energy at their fingertips in a manner that they can continue to afford. So that's our triple bottom line objective. It basically focuses on equity, the environment, and the affordability. So Asha, if you go on. And before we can even really talk about what that means, you have to understand what energy Northwest Natural provides to our economy and to our region. I think we do a really good job about providing energy to our folks, and reliably it's there. As Lynn said, you turn on the burner to your stove, it's there, your house is warm, your water's hot. We don't talk about what we do and how we do it, but it's important. We cover about 2.5 million people almost 50% of the population in Oregon. And on any given day, Northwest Natural is providing about 74% of the energy that people are using in their homes for space and water heating. But on those cold days that, I don't know, in their last couple months that we've experienced, in the morning when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, Northwest Natural is providing up to 90% of the energy needs for space and water heat for our customers. And we're doing that with one of the most modern and tightest systems. And that's a reason we'll talk about in a minute why that's important. And we're doing all of this energy, providing all this energy to our customers at a fairly modest 6% of emissions for our state. And Kevin, do you have anything you want to add on that?
I think that's a great summary.
Okay. So we'll go on. So that shows you where we're at. But we know that there is legislation both in Salem, potentially nationally, and definitely in our cities that people are concerned about even that kind of profile. But a lot of times people will compare our system to a system like California. And it's important for folks to realize that we peak at a different time. California has a lot of cooling load. And so their energy use is often seen in the summertime. And for us, I think we just experienced one of those times. We often have our highest energy needs in those cold months when other renewables, such as sun or wind, are not available. And it's important for folks to think about that in the state of Oregon, actually Northwest Natural is not the largest user of our product. It would be energy production. 51% of the gas used in Oregon is used to create electricity. Our customers use about 26%. So you can see that electrifying our load, you would still be using a lot of natural gas, but it would be on the electrical generation side. One way to think about it is to electrify Northwest Natural's load, meaning change out all that equipment and have it be electric only, you'd need to between double and triple the hydro that we currently have for our whole state. So that's just kind of getting a concept of how much energy we are producing and how costly it will be to replace it with something else. So you can go ahead and go on, Asha. Thank you. But we kind of are looking at this not in a what does the gas system have to do? What about the electricity system? We believe that energy thinking needs to be system-wide because the key thing is that we are reducing emissions on both sides of the grid, both on the electric side and the gas side. And we need to do it as quickly and affordably as possible. And we have seen that over time, the electric system has been able to green their grid, but they didn't do it by cutting the wires and installing a new system. They changed what they were bringing across those wires. And it went from maybe coal generated electricity to more natural gas electricity, generated electricity, then adding some renewables like solar and wind. We can do the same thing on our system. We're currently flowing conventionally produced natural gas, but we are now injecting what we call renewable natural gas, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, into our system, and we intend to increase that and add other gases that are less carbon intense but deliver the same energy. And eventually we are committed to delivering a completely carbon neutral system by 2050, hopefully. So you can go ahead, Asha. And two of the, probably the most important one that makes most sense and is easier for people to wrap their head around would be renewable natural gas. And what that basically is carbon life forms and carbon materials decay. When they decay, they release methane. Methane is what we deliver to your home. So this basically takes waste substances that you'd see at wastewater treatment plants, municipal solid waste, landfills, dairies. It captures that gas that is being emitted as those substances decompose, and it is capping it and cleaning it and then injecting it onto our pipeline, basically closing the loop on our waste stream, and we're able to use it. It's got a similar benefit to that of wind or solar, and when it's combined with other gases such as renewable hydrogen, it allows us to really decarbonize our product, and there is no technical limit to what we can, how much we can collect and use. So it may become to the fact that you are where you were before using 100% conventionally sourced natural gas. You might now be using 25% renewable natural gas and 75% conventional natural gas, really driving down the carbon intensity of our product. And Kevin, do you have any technical things you want to add to that? Maybe about some of the wastewater treatment plants or anything like that?
Well, sure. We have the program that's running now at the Columbia River Treatment Center in Portland that's producing renewable natural gas that's being put into vehicles. I think for garbage trucks, right? And other vehicles. So they're running, the Portland folks proudly call it the poo to power program. So and it's operational. It's happening.
So this is one of the ways we're doing things before legislation comes in. So we'll go ahead now, Asha, for the next one. And this is the other part, is we eventually hope to have hydrogen, renewable hydrogen on our system. And you ask what renewable hydrogen is. A lot of times you get a lot of renewable energy in the springtime. There's a lot of wind, there's a lot of sun, but people don't have as much demand. And battery storage may last for hours or maybe a day, but that's not maybe when we will need that extra electricity. So what you can do is you can take that electricity, subject it to hydrolysis, and it basically takes a water molecule, splits it into two, and you now have hydrogen, which you can store on our pipe and then use in a couple seasons. So we are working right now with the City of Eugene's Electric and Water Board to do a project there. We're hoping to bring more of these projects into our system. There are 3. We will have the 4th in North America, but in Europe, who's about 10 years ahead of us in this kind of technology, they've got over 100 projects. So this will be another way that we intend to decarbonize our product going forward. Asha? So that's all this is to say is we understand that we need to embrace the change that's needed, but the Northwest simply cannot meet its climate goals without both decarbonizing an electric and gas system. And we are evolving what goes through our pipes. But to actually be able to do that and to meet the energy needs of the Northwest, we are going to need a diversified set of solutions, both green electrons and green molecules. And in addition, we need to focus on resiliency. We've saw in the last few weeks that a lot of folks who did not have electricity or power there, they still may have been able to use their stove, they may have been able to have hot water, or they may have been able to use their gas fireplace. And we feel that 2 energy systems working on decarbonization are the best for affordability, resiliency, and for our climate. And what we need to have from you as our business partners and community is to understand the complexity of the energy system and understand that there are no simple solutions, and you need to ask questions and be aware of what's being said. So with that, that's kind of the overview. Lynn, we have some questions that we submitted to you, and I'm hoping the audience, as we go along, if they have questions, that they'll put them in the chat and we can kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I was going to mention that at this point in time, that again, as Nina suggested, if you do have questions, put them in the chat box, and Asha and I will take a look and try to forward them to it. So a couple of questions. I've got some predetermined questions here, but I want to ask, I guess I don't know what renewable natural gas is. You go around capturing the gas and put it someplace back in the pipe. Is it a complicated explanation of what renewable natural gas is? Because I look at it as once it's used, it's done. So, Kevin, is it geeky to ask that question? I don't want to spend very much time, but I think it's important to understand.
Oh, that's a great question, and I'll give it a quick geek.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about, say, a landfill, for example, it's basically a giant container of rotting stuff, right? And right now, that produces methane, like Nina indicated. So you have a choice. You can let that leak into the atmosphere and become a greenhouse gas, actually more intense than carbon dioxide. You can burn it, which turns it into carbon dioxide, which is better, but you're just wasting that energy. Or you can capture it and put it into a pipe and clean it up and put it into your house. And so something has to happen with that gas, no matter what. Might as well use it. right? And the same is true for a waste treatment facility, a lot of other facilities. The methane is going to happen. It's just what are we going to do with it? So if you can intelligently capture that, hey, free energy.
And Lynn, one thing that we like to stress is sometimes you will hear some people who are detractors of the idea of renewable natural gas say, oh, it's not a big deal. There's not enough of it to matter. And we were fortunate enough to have the legislature in 2017 fund a study to determine how much renewable natural gas is out there in any given year. And they came back with a number of about 48 billion cubic feet of renewable natural gas per year in Oregon of technical potential. Now, admittedly, some of that would be too expensive to capture and to use, but for context, our customer base uses about 50 billion cubic feet per year. So let's say if you caught every bit of technical potential, you would basically be able to offset all of our customer use. We don't expect us to be able to capture all of that, but even if you were able to capture half of that and offset 50% of our customer use with a product that was going to happen anyway and was simply going to be wasted, that's a pretty big achievement, and that is enough to matter.
Yeah, well, I'm of the belief that pennies add up. So they always do. Thank you both, Kevin and Nina, for that clarification. So our businesses that are on the call today, or just in general, they barely have time to keep up with what's going on in their business, let alone what kind of legislation is going on in Salem. And for sure, they don't have time to keep up with what's going on nationally. So just a little short scenario, what's the situation on a national and state basis that potentially will roll down to impact our business owners?
Well, I would just say this. A lot of the local I guess, angst or activism is because there has not been a cohesive direction from the federal government. The Biden administration has definitely signaled that climate policy will be much more of a focus, so that could be positive. A couple things that we're excited about is we are working with our congressional delegation to ensure that in energy policy, there are incentives to encourage the development and market adoption of renewables, and that renewable natural gas and renewable hydrogen are included just as you would include wind and solar. Additionally, we feel that the focus on infrastructure that we anticipate from this administration will include allowing us to do some of these, what we call interconnects, or helping put together the equipment that cleans these renewable gases that were captured and being able to inject them into our pipes. So we're hoping to be able to incentivize or offset some of those first costs so we have more of this stuff available at an affordable rate to be able to decarbonize on our pipe. And we're hoping that a cohesive policy, we all know that patchwork policies around a state, or in this state you can do this and in this state it's this way, are more expensive and more difficult for businesses to navigate. So we're hoping that a more cohesive strategy around energy policy will be helpful. Additionally, the governor, because of the lack of action on climate action or around cap and invest or cap and trade, as people might have heard over the last couple sessions, she, being that wasn't passed, she basically used the power of her office to create some executive orders, and those are still going through rulemaking. Additionally, there are some bills in the House and Senate in the state right now that are touching energy policy. And I'd like Kevin to just touch a little bit on what we're seeing around code development and how they're using codes to perhaps make it less attractive to use natural gas.
Well, for example, there's a bill that's focused on the REACH code. This is kind of techie, so bear with me for a second. There's a base energy code that everyone has to meet. And the governor, in that executive order that Nina referenced, has said, we need a REACH code, something that's more energy efficient, as a guidepost of what could come. And this bill is saying, we could allow cities or municipalities to make that mandatory, and that would increase the energy efficiency of a building. In this case, it's residential, 10+%. At the moment, the REACH code is fuel neutral. It just says make it perform better. And it's, I think, part of the drive behind that bill is what Nina was referring to, is a desire by municipalities to do something in lacking a federal direction. So that's working through committee. We've actually submitted some comments on that to help improve it. And it who knows, it might actually be a useful thing to drive efficiency in the state. We'll see how it gets implemented. There's another bill, I forget the number, but it basically says, I'm not going to get into that. It's too complex, actually. But there's a number of bills that do touch on energy policy. I think the thing to watch for is it providing a fair chance for consumers to choose their energy source? And is it based on building science? And is it based on cost effectiveness?
So that it's a great perspective. Without a comprehensive policy or direction, others are striving to deal with that. And Oregon is known to be really progressive in a lot of they have for years. The bottle bill, for a long time, we have been on the edge, on the cutting edge, if you will, of creating bills and direction on how to do things. But one of the things you just shared with Kevin is that the municipality aspect of it, and municipalities share borders. When we built our new garden center, we were a half a block inside Gresham border compared to Portland. And the fire department rules for Portland were very different than the fire department rules for Gresham, but we almost shared that border. And so a municipality, if a local municipality decides it's going to be X kind of standard, but the municipality next door says it's going to be Y, same house, 20 feet different rules. Those are the kinds of concerns that a lot of us business folks have on the kinds of legislation that come through Salem or the federal government. So more of a continuity across. Would you agree with that, or do you see there's advantage to that competition of different rules?
Well, I think one thing that we're blessed with in Oregon is a very consistent code across the state. Also, it's relatively easy to understand. I say relatively as a code geek, but compared to, I'll pick on Washington. It's a fair comparison. Their energy code is much more complex. Just to understand it, how to implement it, and I think a natural consequence of that is Oregon has a very high compliance rate, like a fraction of a percent of non-compliance. And as I recall, we're 15 times higher in compliance than Washington. All right, I'm probably saying that backward. They have 15 times less compliance than we do. That's a better way to put it.
They're naughty and we're not.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
we're talking.
Let's just say it and get it over with. Now, go on, Kevin.
We're talking of a fraction of percent for us and a few percent for them. So,
okay.
So it's not this, enormous difference, but that has consequences. That means things get built that aren't as efficient as they should be. Inspectors have to spend more time learning the code to implement it, and builders have to learn more. I have to learn two codes and a more complex one to implement that. So and to be clear, this REACH code adoption bill would say that, okay, there's two codes possible, not 20 or 50. It wouldn't be per municipality, it would just be the two. But even so, that's an added complexity. And as you increase the complexity of systems, new problems emerge, right? So as you said, you could have two houses 20 feet apart that have to be quite different.
Well, and additionally, would you say any complexity that's added to code as mandatory will increase costs? And we can all pretty much agree that homes right now are pretty darn expensive, and legislation that compels them to be more complex and add to the cost is possibly not the way we want to mandate right now. Not saying that you can't make that choice, but to mandate that's a different scenario altogether.
So let's talk about costs. And by the way, Kevin, I don't think you're a geek. You can talk as long as you want. Nina, let's talk about costs, because costs, as I started this off, it's the cost of business, but it's also a cost to my home. So what are some of the cost implications, my mouth's not working, of the anti-natural gas legislation that seems to be bubbling in Salem? So we don't want gas, according to some of the folks in Salem. So let's move away from gas. Let's go some other direction. So what I know you don't have a magic ball, but what are some of the cost implications on that to us as homeowners and business owners?
Well, first of all, let's say I just want to kind of set the stage that right now we don't have any gas bans being proposed either statewide or locally. There are some cities, most importantly, City of Eugene, that is actively kind of looking at what they want to do. So please note to businesses that while it's not here, it is something that even City of Seattle is got on their in front of their council right now. Many cities in California have banned the use of natural gas in new construction, multifamily and residential going forward. So it is a thing that can happen. And being that it is happening very city by city, your city may not be considering it now, but a city council cycle or two could change the attitude of the folks who are on your city council. So it's something, that's one of the things that is particularly difficult, is if you are having more activist cities do this, it again raises that complexity and it becomes more of a challenge. But first of all, there's kind of two ways to think about this. There's banning natural gas in new construction. And to do that, that means that load has to be taken on by the electric provider. And in the resource planning councils, they're already somewhat concerned about what we call resource adequacy. And what that means is, do the electric utilities have the resources to accommodate the need that they're going to face going forward? And as you add more cars onto the electric grid, as we have more and more electric vehicles or EVs being powered through the grid, and then you take on some of the new construction load from natural gas, that could exacerbate what they already see as resource adequacy issues going forward. Additionally, that would mean a electric provider would have to go out to the market and procure more electricity because they only have certain amount of power that they are generating currently. So purchasing more, that could end up costing consumers more. Additionally, they may have to create or purchase or build more generation, which that generation is usually paid for through rates, and that could end up driving up costs for our energy going forward, our electric energy going forward. Additionally, there are some cities that have, like right now in the state of Washington, they've been looking at not only a gas ban for new construction, but a phase out of gas over a period of time, which could cause homeowners and businesses to have to change out their equipment from what they may have a gas-fired furnace or hot water heater. They may have to convert to a heat pump or a heat pump hot water heater. So those will be additional costs. So I know a lot of folks in the advocacy community say, oh, this is going to save money, it's going to be better. Well, there are a lot of costs, and that energy isn't free, and those upgrades and those enhanced capacity doesn't come at no cost. So that's something for people to think about.
Yeah. We often think of energy as it's just there. We take it for granted, but it is a matter, as you just pointed out so well, of a supply and demand, and then the bidding wars that go on to procure that energy from wherever it comes from. So my understanding is that natural gas is safe, it's affordable, it's environmentally friendly. So I still just can't understand why folks would be trying to dismantle an industry like that and put it into a bidding war atmosphere where, you know, one product is going to be the end all save all for all of us. It seems like the cost would be outrageous. The competition would be outrageous, you know, et cetera. Do I have my head in the sand, or is that an accurate statement?
Well, I think that we all know that we need to do things to address climate change. It's really simple to say, let's clean the electric grid and then let's electrify everything. That's a simple thing for people to understand. You can put that on a bumper sticker. You can have that quick conversation. But what people maybe don't understand is the interconnectedness of our system. Even if a city says we're only buying 100% clean electricity, that's true. They may be only buying 100% renewable electricity. However, there's only a finite amount of renewable electricity at any given time. And because one city has got 100%, that may take another city that doesn't have that kind of mandate to a much less of amount of renewables. Additionally, I mean, there's talk about the Snake River dams, those coming out. There are 42, I think, hydroelectric dams in our region, and even Republican senators in Idaho are talking about dismantling those dams. So that's a decrease in some of the energy that we rely on as clean, if not renewable. So that's why we're not saying the electric utilities shouldn't be bringing on renewables. They need to be. We also really believe in the work transitioning, especially in the more metro or urban areas, to electric cars, because we think that's a really sensible idea to kind of get their hands around an area that has been hard for us to decarbonize. Just kind of for conversation's sake, people should know in 1990, any given house used a considerable more amount of energy than they use today. And the energy or greenhouse gas emissions on the residential sector have continued to go down from 1990. So we're really making progress on that. The one place that we are not making progress is our transportation areas, and those emissions, greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, continue to go up. But that's a bigger monster to put our arms around and really control. And I think that's why the focus has turned to natural gas, because the folks are realizing that the transportation sector, while it's growing, 38% of greenhouse gas emissions are transportation. That's a hard nut to crack or elephant to eat, where natural gas is one or two companies that you can focus on and really hammer on them, where even if you banned our product, you may end up having higher emissions, and you now have that added cost. So it's a head scratcher, but it's because it's complex. And that's probably one of the most important things for us to have this conversation with our community and business leaders is, if you're interested, if you're concerned about this, we need you to contact us and to let us know that you want to learn more. So when we are facing a threat in your area, or we need people to testify, or we want to educate people further, that we have a list of folks that are ready and willing to learn more and become advocates for energy choice. And that's the thing this comes down to. We're not saying you need to have this or you need to have that. We believe in affordability, resiliency, and practicality and choice. And that's a lot of what we're talking about. We're going to continue operating our business in a manner that is driving down our own emissions, but we want people to be able to make their own decisions too.
Yeah. Choice is an important word, especially for Oregonians. We like our independence and we want to have choices. So that's good. I'm going to ask a question. You brought up the local cities, and Gresham has been known for several decades to be on the more progressive side of the energy issue. I mean, Mayor Bemis he initiated a lot of different programs. And quite honestly, I don't know all the programs that he initiated. I know it's wastewater and, those kinds of things. I totally agree. But is Gresham on the map for for any of the projects that you are considering developing? Are we on the radar to accept or to do some of that? Kevin, maybe you know from the engineering standpoint. I don't know from the political, the product standpoint if that's interesting or not. But we're all about saving money in Gresham, and the renewable cycle of energy. That's been a highlight for us too for several decades. So, Kevin, is Gresham on the map?
Well, I'm not aware of projects that we have slated for Gresham.
Okay.
But I know that there's some opportunities for carbon reduction all over the state that we're looking into. Not just what goes down the pipe, but what comes out of the flue, shall we say, too.
Okay.
Well, Lynn, I do know that you guys, we have been in talks to look at some what we call some fleet analysis, and where we play kind of on that area would be return to base or heavy haul equipment. And I know that we have talked with some of the folks at City of Gresham. So like waste, like garbage trucks, anything that is heavy haul that an electric vehicle can't really, doesn't have the capacity to be able to do that. We really can play with what we call compressed natural gas, or you can do compressed renewable natural gas. And it basically is the same kind of product, but it's made from renewable sources, kind of like what City of Portland is doing at their wastewater treatment plant. So we are in discussions with you guys. Additionally, we have a renewables team that is reaching out to various jurisdictions to see if the interconnecting your wastewater treatment plant would make sense with our facilities. Usually there has to be size. It has to be above a certain size for that to really pencil out. But one of the other things that we're working on that's can help with businesses and residences and jurisdictions would be, we have a couple programs. We have what we call Smart Energy, which is basically an offset program, allows either a jurisdiction or a residence to buy pay a little additional amount on their bill. That money is pooled and administered by Climate Trust, who will go out and purchase an offset. It may help a dairy farmer put a biodigester on his dairy, and that would stop that dairy from emitting methane. So it helps finance those kinds of projects, and it reduces it kind of offsets your usage. Additionally, we are right now working on what we call a green tariff, and some people may be familiar with either PacifiCorp or PGE's clean, I think Blue Skies or Green Energy Future. And basically what that will do is it allows jurisdictions or large corporations to go further, faster on the purchase of renewable natural gas. We will, by the end of this year, have 3% of our throughput be renewable natural gas. But let's say a jurisdiction would like to have 10% or more of their usage be renewable. It will allow them to buy that in addition. So we have some tools that are coming online that allow jurisdictions and residences to reduce their basically either their carbon intensity or offset their use. And our deal is we'd like to use as little as possible and offset what you have to use.
So these are all environmentally appropriate and progressive ideas, actually. And oftentimes, the average everyday person, they hear, oh, this big bad utility company using fossil fuels, they're bad, 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 but not understanding the whole picture that there are a lot of policies, a lot of decisions that are being made by folks like you that are actually environmentally friendly and encouraging, and it's like pay it forward, as you described for others. So I'm going to go back to the political aspect. Many times, the average Oregonian will say, "Well, they'll never do that." Talking about the legislature, but often they do, and it's either from a bill perspective or it's from an agency perspective, the code, the rules that come out after a bill has been passed. Is there something that you recommend of how an everyday Oregonian could stay abreast of some of these things, even though they may think, oh, that's never going to happen? help us.
Well, I guess it all comes back to it's kind of two-pronged. I would say on the state level, it's important for you to talk with your legislator, have them understand where climate is in your climate change or addressing climate issues, is how important that is to you, but how that you want it done in a pragmatic manner that is data driven. And that's kind of the key thing. We can make policies saying anything unless we have data behind them and good modeling and accountability showing that we made this policy, we thought it would do that. What did it actually do? And do we need to modify it to get to to get those results? So just staying kind of abreast of where your state legislator is. And even right now, that's more important is what does your county commission or your city council think? Where are they on this? Make sure they understand the importance of natural gas or energy choice or affordability of products to you. And because for instance, I mean, I look at places like City of Eugene. We've been in a prolonged discussion over a year and a half on our franchise agreement, that they're trying to use our franchise agreement to have us sign on to certain climate imperatives. And we don't necessarily think they're well modeled. And we're really reaching out to our community members and business members in Eugene to communicate what they think to their city council folks. So it's important, if this matters to you, please let me know, because we are trying to kind of keep a list of folks who are engaged and motivated on this, because I would say on the environmental activist side, they already have a pretty long list and they're very vocal and they show up. And while they have some they have some definite concerns that are understandable, some of their solutions are maybe not as well reasoned. And we want to make sure that both city councils, county commissions, and your state legislators understand what people from maybe a more business perspective think on this, and that there isn't just one opinion being heard.
So we're going to wrap up our morning or our lunchtime together with you. So Kevin and Nina, are there some closing comments that you would like to make about your industry or skiing, or what your plans for the summer are? Or I'm just, obviously I was teasing, but do you have some closing comments that you want us to be sure and hear today, and take it, that nugget that we want to take away from today?
Kevin, I'll let you start for sure.
Cool. I think I'd want to emphasize that the goal is decarbonization of our energy systems. And it makes sense to electrify some things, and some things it just doesn't. So we need to decarbonize the entire system. And that's in a word, that's the goal. And I believe we have a path to get there. And I also believe that others have similar pathways to get there. So it's a matter of coordinating those efforts to not get in each other's way, be efficient, and be cost effective. And I believe that we can actually get there, that we can actually address the climate imperative.
One of the things you didn't say is use common sense as we proceed. And oftentimes that is really important to have movement towards a goal. Is
Sure.
That common sense factor about it. So Kevin, thank you about that. And decarbonize, again, that's not a word Drake and I use at the dinner table, but we will tonight, because I can't wait to tell him about today. Nina, how about you?
I would just say energy policy is important and it's complicated. But it's essential that everybody does a little bit to educate themselves on this and understand, because these decisions are going to impact every one of us. And it's important that we all understand some of the ramifications of these, and that we make sure that our voice is heard at even a very local level, because it's going to affect all of our pocketbooks. And if we don't do anything, it's going to affect our climate. So it's not an exciting, it's not a sexy topic. It's a complex topic, but it's really going to affect all of us. And we all have to have, we all have skin in the game. So we all better be paying attention to this because it is coming soon to a city and a county and a state near you.
Yeah. That unfortunately is a very true statement. Asha, before we excuse Kevin and Nina for the day, were there any questions in the chat box that we've missed that is a burning desire to hear?
No, we are absolutely clear.
Well, I'm impressed that you answered so many questions already before they were even questions. So you guys both did a wonderful job. When I was in the legislature, some of the issues we're talking about today were back then, and that was, 2 decades ago. And PGE, the electric groups and the gas groups were together on a lot of things and competing with a lot of things, but they both were always moving forward in an environmentally friendly manner and taking into consideration costs, not just for businesses, but for the homeowner, the renter, everybody that turns on their power, turns on their gas. That was always a high priority for the utilities to watch out for. And I'm so pleased that you're still at that level, that you still are doing the best for Oregonians that you know how to do. Nina, thanks for reminding us that things start in our backyard. They start with our local. Yes, a comprehensive policy on the federal level can help, but the decisions are right here. They're with the 110,000 people in the Gresham city limits. And that's where we can have the most impact and then continue to send that message forward. So thank you both. Nina, I'm so grateful, just on a side note, that you're a board member for the Chamber. You're bringing an amazing new energy to our board. Thank you very much for doing that. I want to thank our sponsors again, Columbia Bank. We're grateful for their participation, Portland General Electric and the Boeing Company, Gresham Barlow School District, and MetroEast Community Media. Again, you can see this rebroadcast through their cable channels. And I hope that you will join us next month for another Business Leaders Luncheon, the third Tuesday of the month. Next month is Metro President Lynn Peterson. When Metro first started as a local government, its role was to oversee a small amount of county entities that were of an overlapping nature. Much has changed since then, and over time, that government entity has grown. Metro is substantially larger today, and they're seeking to coordinate even more responsibilities. And so join us next month to see what Metro's regional priority update is and have a chance to ask President Peterson about those priorities and get a clarification on what that is. So again, thank you, Dinah. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Northwest Natural Gas, for all that you do for energy and for our environment. And thank you to all of you that tuned in today and shared lunch with us. I hope you'll join us again next month. And if you have any questions in the interim, email them to me and I'll get them to Kevin and Nina because I probably can't answer them. So thank you very much, both of you, for their time. Bye-bye now.